Hey guys, what's up? So I am kind of low-key excited for for this video, not because I think it's structured in any way. I feel like I still need to dive into structuring, but again, I do this as a pass and when I have downtime because I really do enjoy doing this. So maybe the more I do them, the more I get familiar with what works for me and what doesn't. I do not like reading from script, although I feel like maybe that would help me structure things a little bit more. But regardless, this has been something that I've been wanting to do for a while because I enjoy talking about the box office. Even to my friends and people that are close to me, I enjoy dissecting it and telling them what a movie did or didn't do, or how much money it did or it didn't do, because I feel like it's important. And this is a little bit of a necessary backstory, but as a person that loves film and just entertainment in general, right? TV, entertainment, movies, etc. I've always wondered, why is it that my favorite franchises or movies that I thought that were super big or hits didn't get sequels, right? And or didn't get a second installment, or didn't continue on, right? And I started noticing that the reason why, and this is years back, but I started noticing it's because obviously the monetary gain from those movies were not it, right? And a lot of normal audiences or people that don't follow the industry, or at least this aspect of the industry, don't know is that that's the reason as to why a lot of these movies that they probably hold near and dear did not continue in future installments, or maybe books that they were already lined up and that were already made but didn't continue, even though the books were well acclaimed, right? And I dove more into this and I started to understand more of the ins and outs of the box office. I don't know everything. I know that there's other people in the internet that probably do like a more deeper dive, but I want to try to take my hands on, like get my hands on this, because I feel like a lot of the people that even I enjoy tend to have biases or tend to just skew things in a different way because they have certain agendas that they want to push, right? They have certain audiences that they feel that they have to cater to. And I'm the type of person that if I like something or I enjoy something, or even if I don't agree with something, or I really hate that something happened, it doesn't really matter. It is what it is. Like, I can't do anything about it, especially when it comes to the box office. There's not much that I can do when spinning something. Like, numbers are numbers, and numbers are so good that it gives you a black and white picture on something that otherwise might be a little bit more in the gray area on the way that people approach it, right? Again, it's all about just looking at the numbers, and even if you don't agree with them, be like, well, it is what it is. On that note, like, even The Flash, I enjoyed the film. I didn't review it, but I enjoyed the film. I thought that the CGI was wonky, but the storyline was actually good. But that being said, I know it's a failure when it comes to the box office, like the biggest flop ever. Like, it's just bad. And I feel like a lot of people have an issue when a movie fails or flops, or people give them the resources to be like, hey, you might have enjoyed the film, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was actually a success. It was actually the complete opposite. And a lot of times companies like Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, and all the other companies, these big studios tend to try to morph things or do headlines in order to further their gain in the audience's opinion. The court of public opinion, having the stances and the people that are fans of XIP be like, well, yeah, but that's not what the studio said. But in reality, behind those closed doors, they're like, damn, we didn't make money. We lost a lot of money. Like, what the hell happened? So this is essentially what the box office is for. Now, important note before we dive in, the box office is not the total money that the movies make. You have things like, obviously, I always pronounce this word wrong, but the ancillary market, I feel like I pronounce it wrong, but things like your distribution, the distribution rights for the movie that a lot of other companies either paid the studios for, or Disney in itself pays themselves to actually distribute them in either streaming platforms or other places like TV channels or whatnot, right? And obviously your DVDs and Blu-ray sales, well, in this case Blu-ray, because who the hell uses DVD now, and your digital aspect of it, you know, your iTunes, your Google TV or whatnot. Excuse me. So all of that also jumps into the overall gain or profit for a movie. So the box office is more to gauge how well the studio is in terms of actually recuperating the amount of money that they spent on X property, right? So it's always very important that if it has a really good box office, that means that it really has its work cut out for it, because once it gets into these other aspects or these other venues of distribution, it's actually just gonna make more money and essentially just give the studios what it needs, and actually it's to turn into the green, or in this case in the black, instead of just laying in the red, right? But anyway, enough of that. Let's dive right into it. I think it's no surprise that this weekend was going to be the biggest weekend for 2023 when it comes to the box office. I really thought that this weekend was going to be great. I never had any type of doubt when it came to the success of this weekend, especially with the success of both movies that we're going to probably dive into a little bit more today. But it was a given. I think that anybody that analyzes film, or anybody that actually enjoys doing this or follows it on a daily basis, knew that this was going to happen. This was the most anticipated weekend of the year, and even Hollywood knew it. Like there was a lot of it that came behind this big machine in order for these movies to be successful and for this box office weekend to be extremely successful. I think that there's a wild card in the top 10, or at least in this case in the top 3, that I think Hollywood did not expect, but we'll talk about that film in a bit. But talking about Barbenheimer, like the headline says, Barbie still gorgeous with best year to date 162 million opening, and Oppenheimer detonates 82 million, an incredible 300 million plus US box office weekend. That is insane. When I tell you that's insane, that is insane. The amount of money that Barbie, especially Barbie, right? Because I think that Oppenheimer actually rode the coattails of Barbie's success in terms of the marketing aspect of the movie. And it helped the movie reach to the amount that it reached, because the estimates for both of the movies were a little bit more conservative, right? Barbie, Warner Brothers expected like a 75 million opening domestically, and then Oppenheimer, Universal said like around 50 to 55 million. But boy, were they wrong. They were extremely wrong. And there is this one news site, I think it's Box Office Pro, if I'm not mistaken, that actually probably hit the nail on it. Every projection had Barbie at around 120, 125. Once the week started creeping up, they started like putting it a little bit higher. But Box Office Pro put this movie at around 145 to 175 in its opening weekend, and I think it actually hit the mark, which, if you're familiar with them, they tend to always like highball it instead of just being a little bit more realistic about it. But I feel that not only did the marketing of Barbie help the movie, but I also feel like this whole organic meme of Barbenheimer really, really helps cement these movies into the successes that they are. And not to mention that they're both different completely in terms of their audiences and the way that they cater to their audiences. And the way it's essentially counter-programming. And I think that this is what Hollywood needs to understand when it comes to the audiences, that you can have two big profile movies in one weekend and still have both of them be extremely successful. It's just a matter how you market it and the way that you utilize that market to target the core audience that you want to, that you want to potentially have in the seats for the multiplex. I feel like this is an incredible thing. it is an incredible thing for everybody that's that's working on these movies, be it the lead actors, and even the directors and producers. It's a huge win. It's a huge win, especially when you consider that you have the strike, both from the Writers Guild and the actors, and SAG. Right, we are probably not going to have content, or we're not going to have movies coming out like we did this summer. 2024 is looking a little bit stale, and I'm pretty sure that we're not going to have much for 2025. So this is going to be something that happens now, and it's going to take a while before it happens again. So I think that they all should take this as a win, but probably understand that this is looking like it's going to be something that's a one-off, and a lot of people will probably talk for the next foreseeable future, probably within the next 5 to 6 years, because it's going to take a long time before this happens again. Everything aligns so perfectly for these movies that I don't even know when we're going to have something like this again. But anyway, diving a little bit more into the numbers, I want to talk about the box office numbers for the weekend, although I know that today's Tuesday, and I'll touch upon that in a bit. But this is where we stand when it comes to the overall box office for the weekend that just passed. Barbie coming in at number one with $162 million, and that was still like a good $7 million more than the estimated 155 that they had it by the end of Sunday. So again, it's still beat the projections that they had for it, which again, great for it as well. Oppenheimer, $82 million. Still great. I think it's one of the best openings for Christopher Nolan outside of the superhero franchise, which again, it's great. I have not been able to watch the movie yet, but I will try and watch it sometime this week so I can get up a review up. I know that a lot of the friends that I have, especially my male friends, they have said that they love the movie, and it's easily one of the best movies that Christopher Nolan has ever made. So I don't know, that's kind of high up there when it comes to the overall approach and I guess excitement of the movie. So we shall see if it rings true once I end up going to the movies and seeing it. Now, remember when I said that there was a wild card? This is the wild card for the whole summer, and it's Sound of Freedom. I haven't personally been able to go watch it for numbers of reasons, but I like that a lot of the people that I've talked about or have approached me about the film say that they love the film, that they feel like it's a very important film, that it feels like a lot of people should watch this film. And it's a shame that a lot of the mainstream media and even the pundits that I watch when it comes to reviews are doing nothing but just throwing dirt to the movie. Regardless of whatever your stance is politically, I think that we can all universally agree that the theme of this movie and the topic that it touches upon is something that everybody should be on board with, right? It's insanity. Regardless if they glamorized or they, or they exaggerated the story of the protagonist, it still doesn't ring any less true the fact that, it is a movie that should be watched, that everybody should look at and understand, or at least see once and be on the lookout for those little things and those nuances, and those little details when it comes to the topic, right? Because I don't think that human trafficking is something that anybody should be against, or I just don't understand the overall absurdity of people saying like, well, this is just right-wing propaganda and all this. It's like, ma'am, sir, what? It's confusing to me, but it's hanging there. It's at 124 million domestically. It doesn't have an international release, but 124, it's beating Mission Impossible. That's saying something. It's literally beating Mission Impossible. And not to mention that is just about $13 million less than Elemental. And that's a Disney picture, which again, yikes for Disney for not wanting to, promote this film, or at least release it when they had it in their hands. And it's not that far off from both Transformers and the Indiana film. Like, that is such a huge win for this movie. Like, you guys don't understand how huge it is for this movie. And for it to be number 3 and holding on to number 3 for the past few weekends, and aside from that, only dropping 27%. Again, phenomenal for the film, phenomenal for Angel Studios, which is like the antithesis. Oh God, again, words of Hollywood. So we shall see if it continues. If it ends up north of 150 million, Angel Studios can be extremely happy that they made a point to Hollywood and to these pundits that there is an audience for this type of movie, and that we can all coexist when it comes to it. When it comes to Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, I really don't care much for the Mission Impossible movies. It sits at 118 million when it comes to the domestic numbers. Indiana Jones number 5 with 158 million. Then Insidious, The Red Door, Elemental, Spider-Man, which still is holding on. It's at 375 million. I don't know if it's going to reach that. 400 million. I mean, it still has 25 million dollars to go. Maybe it might reach it, maybe not. But again, fantastic film. I wasn't able to review it, at least in this channel, but again, fantastic film. I think that it is very much deserved, and I think it's easily one of the best animated films, at least from my top 10 list of all time, and it's probably the best animated film that has come out this year by far. Transformers, really don't care much for it, is at 155 million, and then The Little Mermaid is still sort of hanging there with $296 million domestically. I don't think it's going to reach that $300 million mark. Again, that movie, I've mentioned it several times. It did not break even. It did a little bit better than what a lot of people were expecting it, but I feel like 550 some million was where I would have seen it. I thought that it was going to be probably like 600 million, but it did not reach its goal when it came to breaking even. And I'll touch upon that just a little bit more when it comes to the break even part. But I want to talk about, obviously, Barbenheimer, because I feel like that is essentially what everybody is looking at, or at least people are eyeing for this past weekend. Barbie, when you look at it, this is where it sits right now, 382 million worldwide. That is almost 400 million. And this is actually with the numbers that came out from yesterday. It made a $24 million Monday. That is insane. That's literally like around $5 million more than what Super Mario did on its Monday after its release. That's crazy. So to touch upon this movie a little bit more, a lot of people are having it in the conversation that it's probably going to be $1 billion movie. I don't know. It all depends on the second week drop. The second weekend drop is going to be very crucial for this movie, and it's going to probably paint a little bit of a picture of whether or not it's going to reach that $1 billion mark or not. Anybody that actually understands it, or at least people that have followed the box office for years on end, usually there's a trend. Usually a movie makes around 30% of its box office total in the first weekend, right? If we are to utilize that and take into consideration how much Barbie opened, which is, they opened like around 345 million, if I'm not mistaken, probably a little bit less, but it's around that mark. 345 millions, if you multiply it by 3, it easily reaches $1 billion. So it might actually reach $1 billion. Now, the only question is whether or not it's going to have the legs to actually push it past the $1 billion, which I'll touch upon in a bit. I feel like it might have the chance to do it, but again, there's other variables that might hurt it or slow it down to actually make that. Regardless, the movie is still set pretty well in order to recuperate the money that it cost $145 million that it in production value. Some other pundits and people are saying it's 100 million because they got tax write-off of it and whatnot. But the marketing for this movie is probably around the same amount of money. So $300 million, let's say it's the amount of money that they wasted for this movie, probably a little bit less. It's still 300 million. So in order for it to break even, usually you do like a double of that. So it's 600 million. So again, it all depends, but it is set up beautifully because this movie is not going to be out of the off the multiplex anytime soon, and it doesn't really have that much competition moving forward. So again, Barbie is doing excellent. Whether or not it reaches a billion, I'll touch upon that in a little bit. Now, when it comes to Oppenheimer, it's the same story. It's actually really successful. It's at $192 million worldwide. That's obviously counting for yesterday as well. So if you think about it, 82 million is what it opened domestically, and it's at 95 million. So that means that the amount of money that it made on Monday was $13 million. And I again, this movie is probably going to make around 450 million, probably like around 550 to 600 million. It would be a miracle, or actually extremely great, if it makes that 600 million. But I feel like probably around that 475 to 550 million dollar range is where this movie would probably end up in. And I'll tell you why. I feel like the movie, aside from the fact that it seems like it's going to have good legs, which again, I'll touch upon Barbie in a bit more, but it also has the fact that since it's an IMAX exclusive and it was shot to be seen in IMAX, it has so little or has very little theatrical showings. So it's like 3 or 4 showings on a day, and there's a lot of there's a lot of movie theaters which are packed up and people can't even see them. I have somebody that I know, one of my employees, he's been wanting to watch it and he hasn't been able to watch it because IMAX is where he wants to watch it, and every single IMAX around our area is packed. Like, there's no showings, there's no availability whatsoever. So that is telling that probably the movie is still going to rank up money in the days, probably weeks to come. It's almost at $200 million worldwide. I'm pretty sure it's going to pass it by the end of today. So again, the movie is set up beautifully when it comes to the amount of money that it's probably going to make. And the estimate for this movie is like $185 million of the budget, based on the fact that the IMAX, like the IMAX film is so huge that apparently it literally crosses 7 to 12 miles of distance if you were actually just to spread it out. That's insane. Again, 185 million. I don't think it cost that much money to actually market this movie. I probably would say maybe take a good 25 to 40 million to market the movie, but it did help that the whole Barbenheimer thing happened. So, excuse me. So I think that this movie heavily benefited from it. Not to say that the Barbie movie didn't benefit from it either, but this movie definitely benefited from it if they didn't spend as much money when it came to marketing. But again, the box office is just one thing, because I feel like Christopher Nolan just did this movie in order to get his directorial Oscar nomination and win. I think that is what he wants for this. This is essentially what he wants for this movie, and it's for him to win an Oscar because he feels it's already past due for him to have one. And I don't disagree. I think that it's already very much a given. He should definitely be rewarded, and maybe this film is actually the one that's gonna end up taking him past it. Now, two things that both Barbie and this movie have is the fact that both of them scored an A cinema score. Like, for a lot of you that don't know what an A cinema score is, or what a cinema score is, it's essentially the grade that audiences give the movie right out of the gate, right off the movie, right? They spot certain theaters and they ask and they survey people. And for for the most part, both of these movies is an A. When an A cinema score is a thing, it means that it's probably going to have the legs that it needs in order to make up money. A lot of the movies that have had success in the box office and success when it comes to the long term of the movie's run in the theater and the amount of money that it makes, usually they have an A to A plus cinema score, maybe A minus. That's usually where it falls. There's a movie that has been like a little bit more of a wild card, where it's like a B plus, where it has some sort of length because the good word of mouth helps it out. But usually an A cinema score, it means that it has the legs and the fuel it needs to actually reach those big numbers in the weeks coming ahead after its box office release. So both of these movies have an A cinema score. Now, that is one of the variables that I feel that maybe with the Barbie movie could take it across the $1 billion line, because not only is it an A cinema score, right? It also isn't, like, when you look at the overall demographics for Barbie, Oppenheimer is another thing. But I feel like with Barbie is more of a, people are eyeing that more because it's such a divisive film, which I touch upon it in my review, and I'll say it again. I want to do a spoiler review, but I'll probably do it in the next few days. But the movie is not as bad or extreme as people are making it out to be. I feel like a lot of these pundits and conservative or Republican reviewers are very, very much in their feelings when it comes to it. I've seen a few reviewers that I actually enjoy and that I feel that might not typically agree with this movie's messaging, saying like, hey, I didn't see anything wrong with it and I actually enjoyed it. So there are people that are like very much, no, this movie is good, and there's other that aren't. But if you see the cinema score as an overall, cinema score A, the demographics is heavily women. It's 65% women. And I think it was like around 68% the amount of women that went into the theater and saw this movie. So again, it's the antithesis or the antithesis. I don't know how do you say that word. It's the contrary when it comes to Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer had like 63, 64% demographic male. So again, it's a very much counter programming for both of these movies, and I think that actually helped a lot of the couples, men and women that were together. One went to go see Barbie and the other one went to see Oppenheimer, and then you have a fun cute date or family outing or whatever you want to call it. So A cinema score as an overall, but females 65% A, gave it an A. Males A minus a 35%. Even males, which is a lot of people are saying that the masculinity or the fragile masculinity is a big thing, that's why it's getting so much hate. But even the 35% of the male audience that went to this movie and was surveyed gave it an A minus. Again, that is great. That is very, very good. Under 25-year-olds, it's a A 40%. Over 25-year-olds, A 60%. Females under 25, give it an A plus, 26%. Males under 25, 8%, with 13% of them giving them an A. Again, A. It's still an A. All of these are across the board are an A. So this is what I feel might actually help the movie in the long run. Because even if you go into Rotten Tomatoes, and again, I'm very critical when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes, but the all audience score is still at 73. It's not that great. I think last night when I saw it, it was at 77. No, I think it was 73. But it's 73%. It's still, in a sense, very much something that people liked and enjoyed, right? And if a movie like Little Mermaid, and I know I bring this up because I feel like a lot of people that really, really was rooting for that movie to make so much money, and at the end of it, it just fell short. It had the all audience scores for The Little Mermaid was probably around 53%, and it still made upwards of $500 million, right? And that was with a very not so great audience score. So again, this is what I feel is gonna push this movie into probably past $1 billion. Now, the only other variable when it comes to that is that maybe the second weekend drop is going to be heavy. But if we look at the Monday numbers, which was $24 million for the movie, I don't see that happening. I think that the movie actually is going to obviously dip a little bit because movies always do. I don't know to what extent this movie is going to drop only 37% next weekend, just like the Super Mario movie did. But I don't think it's going to be catastrophic, as a lot of people that really want this movie to fail are making it out to be. And again, this is all about target audiences. This movie is catered to women. That is essentially what it is. Barbie is a brand for women. It's a very women-based brand. So for a lot of people saying like, oh, injecting this, injecting that, is like, what are you talking about? Like, this has always been the case for Barbie. This is nothing new. It's not that they're injecting something that was never there. This has always been Barbie and the brand as a whole. So I feel like this is definitely a very, very important telling on what this movie can potentially do moving forward, especially when it has very little competition in the multiplex moving forward. That's not much that's coming out that I think a lot of people are aware of, or that a lot of people probably are interested in, right? And then Oppenheimer is the same thing. It stands at 94% when it comes to the, the audience is 91, the verified is 94. Top critics 96, and then all critics 94. Again, this essentially means that these movies are set to continue to have the box office success that they came out with right out of the gate. And I wouldn't doubt that these movies would actually turn so much of a profit for both of these studios. And I know that Warner Brothers definitely needs it, because these flops that they've been pushing out, and I don't even think that Blue Beetle is set up to do that well, it is a very, very good thing to happen to these studios and for the people that are involved. Greta Gerwig, as a director, I think that cemented herself in this movie and probably made Hollywood understand that, hey, maybe I'm not just an indie filmmaker. I can be more than that, and I can put out blockbusters. And again, Barbie is a perfect example of that. Margot Robbie can also plead the case, and even Ryan Gosling, that they're not box office poison, that people enjoy them, but that they don't tend to go and watch their movies, right? Because a lot of the talks around Tinseltown is that they are formidable actors, but they don't put they don't put butts in seats. There's a lot of, obviously, nuances to that. The marketing was great, the push for it, the pop cultural aspect of the movie, I think, helped it out a lot. But I do think it's going to be a glowing star in both of their careers, and I really hope that it continues. My only concern is that Hollywood learns all the wrong lessons about these movies and about this success stories for both of these movies. I really hope that they don't learn all the wrong lessons, because it's gonna bother me so much. I think that the lesson for this, or the lesson to take out of this, and especially in this box office, and I'll probably end it with that, is that there is a place, there is a time, there is an audience for everything, as long as you actually take the time and make the effort to appease these audiences, right? And not only these two movies, but Sound of Freedom is also another perfect example. I think that Hollywood is still disconnected when it comes to the audiences, and that's why their movies keep flopping, because they feel as if people need to see or want to see certain things, but it's completely the opposite. It's okay to have super woke movies or super feminist movies, right? It's okay to have super masculine movies as well, like on the other side of the spectrum. It's okay to have these things because there's audiences for them. It's all a matter of how you make audiences perceive it, and how you give them the opportunity to be a part of it. I think that Barbie is a perfect example on how extremism is never a good thing, although I don't know where people are taking that it's not that it's actually all about extremism, and that it's all about the super woke feminist agenda. And it's like, it's actually kind of not, because they're kind of making fun of this. I just don't understand where you guys lost this whole thing. But anyway, I'm rambling. But I do hope that they understand, and then that they start considering that, hey, we have audiences that want this, we have audiences that want this, and we have audiences that want that, and that it's okay to make these type of movies that cater to different audiences. These are two big movies that people were afraid that, oh, they come out, they're just gonna hurt each other. But that wasn't it. They were great in their own right. They're completely different and polar opposites when it comes to their story and to the way that they present themselves. And I feel like that is why they're having so much success. You can have a crowded box office, you can have a crowded theatrical release. It's all about how you reach the audiences, and the marketing is very important. Again, take note from the Barbie marketing, because I feel like that is what people should look at. Like, that is how people should market movies moving forward. But anyways, it's 35 minutes in. I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching, if you had the time or if you took the time to watch. And I will try to put up that Barbie spoiler review in the next few days. And hopefully I can continue making content the way that I've been doing for the past few days, at least the past few weeks. I really want to continue putting out these videos, especially when it comes to content, although we shall see how long this lasts, because obviously the strike is very real. It's still ongoing, and I don't know how much or to what extent a lot of the things and projects that are coming out in the near future are going to be pushed back. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.